Trump demanded that China and Russia must make a clean break. In response, China and Russia fired back with a single statement, making the US realize one thing: Trump's triple threat is already outdated. According to the Washington Post, US Treasury Secretary Bessent and Trump both stated that if China continues to buy Russian oil, the US will impose an additional 15% tariff on China. But China's response was truly satisfying. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson directly stated that there are no winners in a tariff war, and that coercion and pressure won't solve the problem. China will firmly safeguard its own sovereignty. Why does China dare to be so tough? Because the US's threat tactics are already worn out. Since the 2018 trade war, what tricks haven't they used? Ship bans, technology cutoffs, terror sticks, you name it. What was the result? Not only did they fail to bring China down, but they pushed China to become more self-reliant and stronger. The US swore it would choke China on chips, but now China's chip industry is advancing rapidly. The US can't sit still and has started quietly loosening restrictions. Blockades are a double-edged sword. They hurt the enemy 1,000, but you lose 800 yourself. Tariffs are an even bigger joke. Trump already tried that in his first term. In the end, who really suffers? It's the ordinary American people who have to foot the bill. Basic economics tells you that the cost of tariffs always gets passed on to consumers, so life for Americans will only get tougher. China dares to respond because the US's biggest confidence comes from its own strength. Today, China is the world's second-largest economy, has the largest manufacturing sector, and is the only country with a complete industrial system. If the US thinks it can crush China with economic measures, it's dreaming. As for military strength, there's less to say. China's military equipment is getting more advanced, and its combat capabilities are on a new level. If the US wants to use the Taiwan Strait issue to threaten China, it better think twice about its strength. China's determination and ability to defend its core interests are solid. The energy sector is even more interesting. China's oil trade with Russia fully follows market rules. So why should we listen to the US? The US itself is secretly buying Russian oil, isn't it? Plus, this time Trump's threats are just shooting himself in the foot. China is the biggest buyer of Russian oil. If a 10% tariff were imposed, US inflation would skyrocket. Ordinary Americans wouldn't even have time to complain, and once international oil prices go up, the whole world suffers. The funniest part is, Trump threatens sanctions on one hand, but on the other says he's not worried about oil prices. Isn't that contradictory? If you cut off Russia's oil supply, it would be unreasonable for oil prices not to soar. Americans would practically go bankrupt just to fill their gas tanks. Let's see him brag then. Trump's secondary sanction is just posturing. China won't change its stance due to threats. Instead, it will escalate the trade conflict. More countries realize relying on the US financial system is risky, so they seek alternatives. China and Russia have settled much of their trade in their own currencies, a trend that continues to grow. Even India, relatively close to the US, has stated it will keep buying Russian oil despite similar threats. This demonstrates America's overbearing actions have sparked widespread resentment. Nobody wants to be led by the US anymore. America's maximum pressure tactics have never worked. They didn't work on Iran, they didn't work on North Korea, and they definitely won't work on China. This old trick is completely outdated. The world today is multipolar. It's not up to the US alone to call the shots. China's firm response in this era is actually quite simple. We have our own path, our own principles, and our own bottom line. If you think you can intimidate China into submission, forget it. The Chinese people don't believe in superstition or fear ghosts. No external pressure can stop the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. This time, Trump has really hit a brick wall. Not only will China refuse to compromise, but will also be even more determined to follow our own path. If the US insists on playing these domineering games, in the end, the only one who will lose is themselves. Times have changed, those old hegemonic tactics just don't work anymore.